Star Wars 7x7, episode 1927. Today we're going to get into a little bit of the backstory of Rose and Paige Tico with some lines from Leia that are some of the best that I've seen written for her. At least certainly made me very happy to hear them in my head as I was reading them. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. So, Rose and Paige Tico, we know a good chunk about their backstory already, or at least we know the general outlines thereof. A lot of that was chronicled in the novel Cobalt Squadron by Elizabeth Wein, and there are pieces of that that are revisited in the Age of Resistance story about Rose and Paige. This is a full spoiler episode though, so we are going to talk about the events of that story, and if you're okay with me just highlighting what you especially are interested in knowing, or at least what I think you would be interested in knowing prior to the advance of the Rise of Skywalker, then stick with me. If you don't want it spoiled for you, then save it for a later date. But otherwise, we're going to jump right into it. So the story itself is sort of an extended meditation on the sisters' history on Hayes Minor, the planet from which they came, and also a meditation by one of the sisters about how the other sister is going to become a great hero. And naturally, in this case, the turn is that you think it's Rose reminiscing about Paige, but in fact, it's actually Paige reminiscing about Rose. And the story illustrates how, even as young girls, Paige was always the one who knew how to fly, and Rose, despite the fact that she knew everything about how stuff was built, it didn't necessarily mean that she knew how to work it. So there is a flight simulator in her grandparents' house to keep them occupied on their otherwise desolate and, practically no atmosphere planet. And she keeps crashing, Rose keeps crashing anytime she takes over the controls in the flight simulator. You also get to see them hanging out with their grandparents, watching holodramas, so you see where they get their appreciation for father years from. And ultimately, the First Order shows up. We know this does not go well. They are mining Hayes Minor for their ore and using bombers to be able to get deeper into the planet to do it. Well, naturally, that is tearing stuff up. At least if they didn't have any awesome things in nature on the planet, they always had the sky. That was the poetic way that they looked at it. And then the First Order took even the sky away from them because the bombing raised up so much ash and dust and dirt and debris into the atmosphere. Or the sky, or what little of it there was. You get the point. Anyway, so as Rose and Paige get older, they decide that it's time to do something about it. So Paige creates a distraction with the First Order facility while Rose sneaks in and disables the weapons and navigation systems of an entire bombing fleet, and a dozen bombers themselves actually end up blowing up, which is great. They think they've struck a blow for Hayes Minor, but unfortunately it only stops things for 3 days, and then the bombing continues unabated. So Grandma and Grandpa get them passage off planet, trying to get them to the Resistance so that way maybe they can help. And it turns out that it's just in time because the whole Automox system is blockaded by the First Order, and they completely wipe out all life on the planet of Hayes Minor, and probably on other planets in the system too. Meanwhile, Paige and Rose have made contact with the Resistance and they're working there, but when they find out what happens to Hayes Minor, they both want to storm off in a bomber and get revenge against the First Order. But somebody's standing in their way, and wouldn't you know it, it's General Leia Organa. And she says, after some conversation with them, that you can have time to grieve if you want, but we need you in the Resistance, so, come back. And Rose says, no, I want to fight right now. And that is indicative of why Paige thinks that Rose is going to step up and be a great hero someday. But I want to share with you the lines that Leia recites, or that Leia gives in her brief conversation with Rose and Paige that changes their minds about what they would do with the First Order. And I'm going to share those with you after the break. Stay tuned. Hey Rebel Rouser, I've made some changes to the asteroid belt level at patreon.com/SW7X7, and they are all with sponsors in mind. So if you want to get the word out about your business, your product, your service to a dedicated Star Wars audience, then please check out patreon.com/SW7X7 and look for the asteroid belt level for details. Again, that's patreon.com/SW7X7. Welcome back. So Leia tells Paige and Rose that if they want to go take off and attack the First Order, they can. But before they go, she says, do you want to throw a tantrum or do you want to create lasting change? Do you want to be a minor inconvenience to the First Order, or do you want to be an ongoing frustrating pain in their side? And naturally, they would rather do that. But this is the line that Leia says that I just loved. She says, there have been enough young lives lost to anger, and I've lived long enough to make a lot of evil people very miserable. I can certainly recommend it. And I just hear Carrie Fisher delivering that line in my mind. And, you know, I said recite before the break, so I feel like it's the kind of thing that she's probably said once or twice to other people who might have wanted to run away, and it's been very effective. But I can hear Carrie Fisher reciting that line in my head, and I just love it. And it just makes me appreciate the character of General Leia Organa that much more. So I just wanted to flag that particular line and share it with you, and I hope you appreciate it too. And that is going to do it for our look at the Rose Tico story in Age of Resistance, and that's going to do it for this episode as well. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.